Well, I'm happy to have your company again, Scorpio, for this very, very important month of September 2025. Important because, as I've been saying to the other 11 star signs, this month has a double eclipse. I'm going to start the animated wheel here so you can see, especially keep your eye out on this movement of the moon here, which is going to be significant on the 8th and the 22nd of September. Talk about that in a moment. But first, preceding that celestial event, the first important one is the movement of Saturn from this fifth house, which has been putting a bit of a damper on your creativity, your love life. Right now, it's retrograde. Well, sorry, it's moved into your fifth house from the sixth house right at the beginning of the month. And so that could have been putting a little damper on your creativity. On the 8th, you'll notice the moon makes a conjunction first off with dynamic, transformative Pluto in your domestic sphere. Then it moves into this fifth house in its full moon bliss, if I could put it that way, which happens to be on the nodal axis. That looks like a set of headphones. That's called the North Node, for those of you that aren't too familiar with astrology. That's your future karma. The full moon on the nodal axis means it's a full moon eclipse. And then in the company of Saturn, can make this a serious time where you want to reignite your creative endeavors. You may also want to re-establish better relationships with your children. The fifth house is all of these sorts of things. The fifth house is also love affairs, but having Saturn there puts the brakes on that. And I think some of you are thinking, well, what's the return on investment on a relationship? And it is an investment. Your time, your attention, your affection, your awareness, sometimes your resources, both men and women, give of all of these what I call elegant currencies. So the question for you this month, and I think this full moon eclipse has a lot to say about that. The question is, are you getting the ROI? ROI, return on investment. I think that's important. You don't need to be a martyr in a relationship. If your needs are not being met, you have to confront this. Sometimes change is difficult because we become habituated to those conditions, to the people that we're with. But if that has happened and you're not feeling fulfilled, you're not getting that return on investment, well, of course, you need to communicate these feelings. That can happen because you've got Mercury up here in this 11th house of your horoscope. And I mentioned on the 22nd, the moon would move up here into this 11th house just after Mercury moves out of this zone. And that's going to be a new moon in the 11th zone of friendships, acquaintanceships, and also your ideals and objectives, goals in life. So this new moon signifies, as it usually does, depending on where it happens in your horoscope, signifies a whole new beginning. It's like cleaning the slate. It's a fresh start. And therefore, this bogging down in the relationships, lack of a return on investment, can start to resolve itself. Venus, the planet of love, also the marriage planet, by the way, shifting here on the 20th, 21st into this 11th zone to combine with this new moon here. So new acquaintances, new objectives in life, new opportunities, new perspectives and communication methodologies, if I could put it that way. You'll notice that that new moon makes contact with Mercury, the communications planet, and then the sun does its what we call Libra ingress. That's when the sun moves into the sign of Libra, and that elevates the energies usually, although in Libra it's a little weak being in the air sign, being in the 12th house, it shows a withdrawal of that energy, a containment of that energy, and it necessitates a rethink. Now, we've talked about that right off the bat. Look at all these retrograde planets. Rethink, 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 rethink. These are all karmically motivated. The retrograde planets are karmic motivators. In other words, they are retrospective. They appear to be moving backwards. And what normally happens, there are setbacks, there are spanners in the works, but it's a grand opportunity for you to look back over the past, examine yourself, especially in the light of this 5th house, 11th house eclipses that seem to be the theme right now, and try to understand where you screwed up, where you can improve, and first question I asked you, whether or not you're getting the return on investment. Now, you can find out a little bit more about this. Do follow the links into astrology.com.au down below. Find out what else is in store for you. I don't always go into depth on every single topic, but there's more information there, and it is set out with a chronological date structure, so you can see exactly what's happening when in terms of the month unfolding. Please subscribe, like us. We like to be liked. I'm an attention seeker at heart. And drop me a line if you want. And I'm going to be here next month. I hope you'll join me again. Look after yourself. Take care now. Bye-bye.